Coming soon to own on
YouTube and Twitch.
Forgotten era of old heroes, superheroes. I'm not gonna lie, if I was a writer, I would make my own version of an old superhero. I'm not gonna lie, the old superheroes are they're good. I wouldn't say they're better, but it's just as good as like the Batmans and shit and the Supermans of the world.
This is Chronicle. At the
Hell
time
yeah,
of
movie.
release, it came out of nowhere. Loosely inspired by mashing up Akira and the Columbine tragedy, this brooding found footage superhero demolished expectations and became a massive hit. Looking back on Chronicle, it's clear that this film was the apex of a subgenre that is now almost completely extinct.
Yeah.
Superheroes obviously date back to 1938 with the introduction of
Superman.
But they didn't reach big screen ubiquity until the early 2000s with the release of projects like Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, X-Men, and 2008's Iron Man. Off of this gold rush of potential viewers, fans of comics, video games, and all things nerd started connecting and showing up to theaters. Once the studios realized that there was an audience consistently hungry for more content, they started seriously developing every comic book character that had previously been culturally relevant.
I'm Peter, by the way.
Doctor Strange.
Oh, you're using your made-up names. I'm Spider-Man then.
Are you a superhero
I'm not gonna lie, I fuck with Doctor Strange heavy.
fan in the early 2000s? Well, you can
Yeah.
thrill to an underbaked Daredevil adaptation starring Ben Affleck wearing a costume that looks more appropriate for road rash prevention, man, than the Guardian of Hell's Kitchen. You could experience an ever-expanding pool of poorly thought out and blandest adaptations of your favorite Ghost Riders, Green Lanterns, and Fantastic Fours. Were there standouts during this period? Of course. Batman Begins and The Dark Knight, Spider-Man 2, Hellboy. However, the bedrock of the genre was quickly becoming Catwoman, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, and Ang Lee's horrendous Hulk. These countless
God
attempts
damn.
at draining money from these age-old characters, some of whom deserved feature film adaptations, and some of whom very much did not, clogged up cineplexes everywhere. This era was something akin to the growing pains every genre needs to undertake. People knew what the tropes of the stories were, but they weren't quite sure how that manifested on the big screen.
Wow. I know, right?
This also allowed for some superhero projects to get made that were not based on previously published material. New characters meant explicitly for the screen. Going all the way back to the 90s, projects like Unbreakable and Darkman grew out of a desire from filmmakers to make superhero stories tailored for the big screen experience. But the genre obviously got more resources once the mainstream superhero films really started pulling in box office receipts. One
Yep.
of the standout entries is James Gunn's Super, starring Rainn Wilson and Kevin Bacon. It acts as an interesting take on a vigilante story produced on a shoestring budget. The film is equal parts modern-day Death Wish film, psychological drama, and black comedy.
Hello. I'm a college student, and I'm doing a report on where to buy drugs.
It uses the tropes of the existing genre and turns them on their head with a wry sense of humor and a DIY aesthetic that still holds up today. The film was produced on a budget of $2.5 million and did not make its budget on its initial theatrical
Yeah, that
release.
flopped
However,
crazy.
in the ensuing decades, the film has gained a substantial cult following. It's something of a beloved curio now, which honestly is more than a lot of these original superhero films can say. For whatever reason, many of these cinematic outings have had almost no cultural impact. The biggest example of a widely released big-budget superhero film, not adapted from a comic, is inarguably Hancock. You remember
I fuck with Hancock, bro. I loved Hancock. Pause. I think they definitely. A lot of people would have wanna have seen more, but I feel like they did the right thing by ending it where they ended it off at.
Hancock, right? It's the Will Smith superhero movie where he puts a dude's head up another dude's butt. Classic cinema. Honestly, that just about sums up the narrative ambition of the film overall. Sure, there's some poorly executed idea about mythology and gods and blah blah blah. It's the type of self-satisfied basic bull that a college freshman thinks is revolutionary. It's a textbook example of people from outside of a genre not understanding the material and thinking they're better for it, which honestly was a big reason why Heroes, another project not based on a comic, failed. Well, that and the writer's strike in 2008. The show started off great, and then it didn't want to evolve into a cost costume super people story, so it had nowhere else to go. In an era of the smallification of superhero aesthetic, heroes just might have been the most hoodies and jackets instead of capes and tights. Before we get to the apex of this subgenre, we have to briefly touch on Kick-Ass and Kick-Ass 2. Kick-Ass is a big budget version of the same idea that Super was tackling. Low-scale urban vigilantism, and honestly, Kick-Ass might be one of the better standouts in this arena. Nick Cage doing his best Adam West impersonation, the visuals of Hit Girl, 2 Quicksilvers in one movie, it's just a grand old time. Though it doesn't hold a candle to the previously mentioned Chronicle. If you haven't seen it, Chronicle is a found footage movie about 3 friends who all gained superpowers. The film follows them as their relationships crumble, and one of the kids, Andrew, played by Dane DeHaan, essentially becomes the world's first supervillain. The film takes the tropes of superhero movies and grafts them onto a horror movie structure, infusing it with fresh energy and unpredictable visuals. It's brooding, dark, and extremely well executed, and
very well executed
in kind. The film was released January 28, 2012, and this time of year is usually referred to as Dump Month, where studios release the projects that they don't have any faith in. It pulled in over $126 million on a budget of 15. It was a massive success. But unfortunately, Fox pivoted much of the central brain trust of this movie to the Fantastic Four remake, which the less said about that, the better. The real tragedy behind all of this is that after the success
that remake, it didn't even feel like a remake. It just felt, I don't know. That remake was weird because one, they already faced off Doctor Doom and beat him in the same movie when they just got their powers. It's like, shit was dumb as fuck.
The studio system stopped the production of alternative superhero movies almost entirely. The MCU and the DCEU clogged the production pipeline. They sucked up all the oxygen in the room. Initially, only A and B-list superheroes were getting the big screen treatment. But when things like Guardians of the Galaxy or Shang-Chi or Suicide Squad were being released, the marching orders were abundantly clear.
Hey guys, sorry I'm late. Had to go number 2.
Good to know.
Projects like Push, My Super Ex-Girlfriend, and Sky High just weren't going to get any resources when you could put the same amount of money into Doctor Strange or Aquaman or even The Spirit. And now,
I'm not gonna lie, the Doctor Strange movie was a great movie. It was a great movie though.
Today, something like Brightburn is an anomaly. Brightburn isn't a very good movie, but it was trying to do something, and cinema needs more new
terrifying.
ideas. The Western was a genre that dominated American TV and film for close to 100 years, but they weren't all based on true stories. It wasn't just 100 years of Wyatt Earp or Billy the Kid adaptations. You had The Searchers, Unforgiven, or The Shootist. They all brought something new and unique. The superhero is also a concept, something to be explored in the same way that the cowboy was. The superhero is a dynamic structure to hang a story on.
As a man, I'm flesh and blood. I can be ignored, I can be destroyed, but as a symbol,
It exists as a concept almost exclusively because of the pressures of American life. They rose in popularity due to the widespread censorship of the McCarthy era. They were the only genre that basically wasn't censored out of existence. Because of that, they're basically every genre rolled into one. They have action, romance, and morality all packed together. But like everything in America, these ideas are now largely controlled by massive corporations whose only true interest is in the bottom line. If the superhero had been co-opted by the corporation, what does that say about us as a whole? This is the exact reason why the alternative or indie superhero is such a vital and potentially potent artistic statement. Tragically, this idea was snuffed out before it was able to truly gain momentum. But who knows? When the Marvel and DC machines shudder to a horrific halt, maybe there will be a newfound potential in films about superheroes that are made by individuals with vision. If superheroes have taught us anything, it's that optimism in times of darkness is paramount, even if it seems naive. And well, that's all we.
That was the forgotten era of alt superheroes. I definitely think there will be a time where there'll be more, superheroes, but like more alt superheroes, but that'll come in due time.
Why you standing on by yourself? Those shoes are made for dancing with someone else. Why don't we move over to that empty space? I'll bet you $20, I'll put a smile on your face. I know a place where we can dance the night away. Maybe we could try to make the world's best slower. We could take our time.